Dawn did not reach the depths of the Atlantic, where the perpetually dark waters hid secrets beyond human understanding. I, Lucas, had dedicated my life to oceanography, but nothing in my career had prepared me for what we would find at the Neptune Abyssal Research Center. This bastion of science, anchored to the seabed, represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a structure designed to withstand the crushing pressure of the abyss and allow us to study the enigmas of the ocean like never before. My team and I had arrived weeks ago. Each of us motivated by a thirst for knowledge and the desire to unravel the mysteries of the deep. Life downtown was a surreal existence, surrounded by miles of water in all directions. Our only connection to the surface was through digital communications and periodic supplies transported by specialized submersibles. Despite the routine of experiments, analyses and explorations, the day began with an unusual sensation, as if the dark heart of the ocean was beating with anticipation. Our sensors, designed to map the terrain and detect life forms, captured an anomaly, an uncatalogued geological formation, located a considerable distance from the base. The decision to investigate was unanimous. The prospect of discovering something new, perhaps even revolutionary, spurred us to action. We prepared meticulously, reviewing each system of the submersible with which we would delve even further into the aquatic darkness. The sense of adventure was palpable, mixed with a dose of scientific nervousness. We descended in the submersible, a compact but advanced ship, designed to maneuver in the extreme conditions of the abyss. As we moved further away from the base, Neptune's light faded, swallowed by the ever-present darkness. The only sounds were the hum of the ship's systems and the occasional creak of its structure adjusting to pressure. Approaching the coordinate of the anomaly, a feeling of unease settled among us. The instruments began to behave erratically, and a dense magnetic fog distorted our screens. Through the gloom, the silhouette of the formation emerged, revealing itself not as a natural structure, but as something clearly designed, with lines and angles that suggested intentional architecture. The structure looked like an entrance, a threshold carved into the seabed that opened into darkness. Curiosity pushed us forward, despite the doubts that arose in our minds. What civilization, present or past, could have built something like this in such a remote and inaccessible place? Upon entering, we found ourselves in what appeared to be an expansive chamber, ethereally illuminated by lines of bioluminescent light running along its walls. At its center, an artifact pulsed with a light that seemed alive, its emission patterns changing in a hypnotic sequence. Fascination kept us captive, watching the device, until it suddenly activated, releasing a wave of energy that threw us backwards and left the submersible inoperable. Trapped in this unknown chamber, without communication with the surface and surrounded by shadows that moved just beyond our perception, we realized that we had found something more than a simple relic of the past. Something had brought us here, something that lay in the depths, waiting. The energy wave had not only disabled our vehicle, but had also disrupted the delicate measuring instruments with which we intended to document our exploration. We were in complete darkness, saved only by the emergency lighting of the submersible, which cast a ghostly glow on our worried faces. The silence that followed was almost total, interrupted only by the occasional hum of the submersible's still operational systems and our own restless movements. The situation was critical. We were trapped in a hostile environment, with a limited oxygen supply and no clear way to return to the surface. After several failed attempts to restart the submersible systems, we decided that our only option was to abandon the relative safety of the ship to explore our surroundings in search of a solution. Equipped with pressure suits designed to withstand the extreme conditions of the abyss, we opened the hatch and entered the unknown structure. The interior of the chamber was even more impressive from this new perspective. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings that shone with a light of their own, illuminating our path. These engravings seemed to tell stories, or perhaps knowledge, of a civilization that until now had remained hidden from the eyes of the world. As we moved forward, the feeling of being watched grew. Every shadow seemed to move, and inexplicable sounds echoed around us. However, the need to find a way out surpassed any fear. The chamber opened into a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, each one more enigmatic than the last. In the center of a large room, we found the artifact that had caused our misfortune, still pulsating with a hypnotic light. As we got closer, we could see that the artifact was composed of unknown materials, with surfaces that seemed to change when not looked at directly. It was evident that it possessed technology that was beyond our understanding. Without knowing how, we feel a connection with the artifact, as if it were somehow communicating with us, guiding us. Suddenly, a series of panels in the room activated, revealing screens projecting images of stars, galaxies and, most alarmingly, the Earth as seen from space. These images were accompanied by what we could only interpret as data, possibly information about the universe known to this lost civilization. It was at that moment that we understood the true magnitude of our discovery. Not only had we stumbled upon archaeological remains of an ancient civilization, but we were possibly looking at evidence of extraterrestrial visitors who had interacted with Earth in time immemorial. The revelation was overwhelming. Each of us, consumed with amazement, realized that we had found something that would change the course of human history, if only we could return to the surface to tell the tale. However, as we marveled at these revelations, a growing sense of danger began to take shape in our minds. The presence we had felt since our arrival seemed to close in on us, reminding us that perhaps some secrets are destined to remain hidden in the depths. Following the astonishing discovery of the artifact and the alien projections, our group was in a state of disbelief mixed with growing anxiety. The data revealed by the artifact suggested not only the existence of an advanced civilization beyond Earth, but also its interaction with our planet in the distant past. However, as we processed this information, an oppressive feeling began to take over us, a feeling that we were not alone in that underwater sanctuary. Initially, we attributed our concern to the situation of isolation and danger in which we found ourselves. Trapped at the bottom of the ocean, in an alien structure with our submersible inoperable, it was natural to feel vulnerable. But soon, these anxious feelings gave way to more tangible and terrifying experiences. It began with fleeting shadows in the corner of my eye, shapes that seemed to slide between the rooms and corridors with supernatural agility. At first, we tried to rationalize these sightings as tricks of the light or figments of our imagination. However, the frequency of these apparitions and their increasingly defined nature forced us to face the reality that something or someone else inhabited this forgotten structure. The whispers were the next indication of the unknown presence. Disembodied voices floating in the air, speaking in a language none of us could understand. These whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, filling the chambers with echoes of ancient conversations. At times, voices would rise to a crescendo, only to abruptly fade away, leaving us in an even more oppressive silence. Tension within the group increased as these phenomena intensified. Discussions about the best way to proceed became more frequent and heated. Some advocated attempting to repair the submersible at all costs, while others, driven by a desire to discover more about our alien discoverers, wanted to explore the structure further. But regardless of our divisions, we all shared an underlying sense of fear at the presence that stalked us. It was during an exploration of a secondary chamber, filled with alien artifacts and devices, that our situation went from disturbing to terrifying. As we examined one of the devices, a shadow materialized before us, taking the form of a humanoid but clearly not human silhouette. This figure, composed of pure darkness, watched us with eyes that seemed to burn with a cold, inhuman light. The meeting was brief. The figure disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving us with more questions than answers. Was this the guardian of the structure? A remnant of the civilization that built it, or something more sinister? As the days passed and our supplies dwindled, the presence grew bolder. The encounters with the shadow became more frequent, and the whispers on the walls more urgent. It was clear that the entity did not want us to leave the structure, or perhaps, it was pushing us towards something. With each new encounter, the reality of our situation became clearer. We were trapped not only physically by the depths of the ocean, but also by a presence that did not belong in our world. The underwater structure, which initially promised to be the discovery of the century, had become our prison, and the entity that inhabited it, our jailer. The fight for our survival had begun, and the presence was an adversary like no other we had faced before. The pressure of the situation began to take its toll on our group. The entity that harassed us in the underwater structure had become increasingly aggressive, its appearances more frequent and its intentions, apparently, more malevolent. The atmosphere had become charged with palpable tension, a mixture of fear, desperation, and a burning desire to escape our confinement. The decision to flee was made in an impromptu meeting, under the flickering light of our flashlights, in one of the few rooms that offered us momentary shelter. The discussion was brief. The need for action had become all too evident. The entity that stalked us not only threatened our mission, but our very lives. We had to try to repair the submersible, our only means of escape, despite the dangers that involved. Preparations for escape began immediately. We divided our tasks, some focusing on collecting useful tools and equipment from the structure, while others investigated the possibility of reactivating the submersible and its systems. Each movement was executed with feverish urgency, but also with meticulous care to avoid attracting the attention of our shadowy stalker. The presence, however, seemed to anticipate our movements. The shadows moved faster, the whispers intensified, and the swaying figure appeared with alarming frequency, watching us with its fathomless eyes, as if enjoying our growing panic. Despite the setbacks, we managed to make significant progress in repairing the submersible. Critical systems began to respond, and hope began to glimmer on the horizon. But the entity was not willing to let us leave so easily. It was during the final preparations for our departure that the most direct attack occurred. The shadow materialized before us, its shape now more defined and threatening, like a whirlwind of darkness. It made a sound, a screech that echoed through the structure, chilling our blood and paralyzing us with primal terror. The battle that followed was chaotic. We threw everything at our disposal at the entity, from tools to pieces of scientific equipment, in a desperate attempt to drive it away. But it was like fighting darkness itself. Each attack seemed to pass through her without any effect. The key to our escape came unexpectedly. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the pulsating artifact in the center of the structure. Guided by an inexplicable instinct, I ran towards him, dodging the swaying presence that was following me closely. Reaching for the artifact, I placed my hands on its vibrating surface, and a wave of pure energy emanated from it, illuminating the room with a blinding light. The entity recoiled with a howl of pain, dissolving into the light before disappearing completely. The way was clear. With my heart pounding and no time to waste, I ran back to the submersible, followed by the others. We started the engines, now miraculously operational, and sped away from the structure at full speed, leaving behind the shadows and whispers that had been our constant companions in that underwater nightmare. As we rose toward the surface, toward light and hope, we knew that our escape was not just a physical escape, but also a liberation from the clutches of a terror we would never forget. The entity, the structure, the artifact, they were all left behind, submerged in the oblivion of unexplored depths, but the scars they left behind would remain with us forever. The return to the surface and to civilization was, paradoxically, both a relief and a disappointment. The sunlight had never seemed so bright or so inviting, and the air, free from the oppressive weight of the ocean, filled our lungs with a sweetness we had almost forgotten. Yet the knowledge of what we had left behind in the dark depths enveloped us like a lingering mist, a shadow that daylight could not completely dispel. Debriefing with the authorities and sponsors of the Neptune Abyssal Research Center was exhaustive and often frustratingly fruitless. How to explain the inexplicable, how to convince logical and scientific minds of the existence of a dark entity and an ancient alien civilization without sounding delusional. Our accounts were met with skepticism, our evidence, limited by the destruction of equipment and the instability of digital records, was considered inconclusive. In a world obsessed with tangible evidence, our experience in the depths became an enigma, relegated to the confines of speculation and mystery. The Neptune Center was closed, declared too great a risk for future research. Restrictions were imposed on the area, and what we had discovered was sealed away, hidden under layers of bureaucracy and security warnings. Yet truth has a way of persisting, of seeping through the cracks of disbelief. An unbreakable bond was forged between us survivors, a mutual understanding that what we had witnessed was too important to be forgotten or ignored. We become keepers of a legacy, the knowledge that we are not alone in the universe, that our histories and destinies may be intertwined with civilizations beyond our understanding. I decided to dedicate my life to searching for more evidence, to exploring the mysteries hidden in the depths of the ocean and beyond. I wrote articles, gave lectures, and met with other researchers who shared my concerns and thirst for knowledge. Although many considered me an outcast, a scientist whose promising career had been derailed by fantasies, I found willing ears on the margins, in communities that dared to look beyond what was accepted and known. The entity, the artifact, the alien structure, all became symbols of our quest to understand our place in the cosmos. Despite efforts to bury our experience, it became a legend, a beacon for those seeking answers to the big questions of existence. The legacy of our deep ocean adventure extended beyond us, inspiring new generations of explorers and thinkers. Books were written, documentaries were produced, and although the story became distorted over time, the core truth remained: the universe is vast and mysterious, full of wonders and horrors beyond our imagination. My life, since that encounter in the depths, has been a tireless search for more answers, an attempt to close the gap between the known and the unknown. Although the entity and the civilization that built it may have disappeared into the shadows of history, its impact on us, on me, will remain eternal, a constant reminder that there is more to this world and the worlds beyond what our eyes meet. Eyes see and our minds understand. The legacy of Neptune lives on, in the depths of our souls and in the infinite expanse of the cosmos.